Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this final episode of our Strategic Initiative mini-series, a special six-part series designed for today's businesses. Businesses having to balance not just survival, but growth in disruption. Businesses forced to reassess whether their corporate strategy is still relevant in today's economy or now dated. And worse yet, having to decide whether or not to do something about it. This is both exciting and nostalgic for me. You see, this is the completion of my very first mini series on a topic which is near and dear to my heart: strategic initiative. Strategic initiative is one of my favorite topics because 1. It is highly rewarding both personally and for the business when it is done properly. 2. It is complex and difficult. Strategic initiative is complex and difficult because 1. It requires you to execute risky, expensive, disruptive project. 2. The projects you select must further the achievement of the business corporate strategy while competing effectively in today's economy. And 3. You must not erode the business competitive advantage in the process. 3. The failure rate is very high. Based on the Harvard Business Review, over 70% of projects fail. Now, there's an ongoing debate on what success is and what constitutes failure. We kept our assessment simple. Did the project achieve its objectives, meaning delivered on all of its success factors while promoting the achievement of the business corporate strategy? If the answer is yes to both of these questions, then the project is considered a success. If the answer is no to either, then regardless of the arguments, the business will lose in some way, thereby deeming the project to be a failure. 4. And the final reason strategic initiative is one of my favorite topics is because SI transforms the business. All SI effects some transformational changes to the business, bringing the business closer to its strategic path, clearing a path forward for the business to now be able to execute the activities necessary to achieve one or more of its corporate goals. On a personal note, I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I love difficult, complex projects, a challenge with low possibility of success. Why? Because it pushes me to stretch my imagination. It forces me to think creatively, and it challenges me to be uncomfortable with what I know or believe while executing the strategic initiatives. There are two main reasons for this special mini series. 1. You see, not all organizations have access to the insights required to properly execute strategic initiatives, simply because this access can be quite expensive for a business. What is even more disappointing for some is that when you do access strategic initiative insights, it can come in the form of a canned solution which may or may not be applicable for your business. 2. Another reason is that strategic initiative is categorized as a complex challenge in business, special projects undertaken by the company to resolve a strategic gap, to clear a path forward, allowing the business to make progress towards its corporate strategy. This series is just one of the many ways NMCS delivers on its purpose, which is to make growth and transformation effortless and affordable for the small and medium-sized business. In this final episode, we will 1. Discuss the operationalization of a strategic initiative, and 2. Discuss the execution of the SI process. Now, this is the execution of the entire strategic initiative process as opposed to a strategic initiative project. First on the agenda, operationalize strategic initiative. For those who missed part 1 to part 5 of this mini-series, a strategic initiative is a special project championed by the leadership team to effect a necessary transformational change to the business, a transformation which must be completed before the business is able to execute the operational activities necessary to achieve one or more of its corporate goals. The operationalization of a strategic initiative is the process of transitioning the output from the strategic initiative process from the SI team to the operations of the business. In part one of this mini series, we discussed three different types of strategic initiatives: the Create SI, the Fix or Repair SI, and the Discontinue SI. We will now look at each of these individually and discuss insights on what to consider when transitioning from the SI project team to the operations of the business. The Create Strategic Initiative. The Create SI is a strategic initiative to create something new, something tangible, something not previously existing within the business to facilitate a growth strategy. A Create strategic initiative can be something tangible that will 1. Increase production capabilities for the business in the form of new partnership, new production facilities, or new acquisitions. 2. Increase sales from expansions into new markets or new geographical areas by creating access into these new markets or geographical areas. 3. Increase competitiveness and market share through integration, horizontal integration into new markets, or through vertical integration to access resources previously not economically accessible to the business. 4. Increase the range and variety of products offered through new product development or the acquisition of new products. As you can tell, this is not a complete list. However, it is sufficient for the purpose of this mini-series to provide insights into the possible outputs or reasons for a business to undertake a Create strategic initiative. All examples provided above create something tangible for the business, something the business can use in operations to grow the business. I cannot emphasize enough how important it is to ensure that the strategic initiative was designed using NMCS strategic initiative process or a tool similar to NMCS strategic initiative process, that the strategic initiative undertaken will bridge a strategic gap, will further the achievement of the business corporate strategy, and the output of the strategic initiative will bring the business closer to its strategic path as opposed to the alternative. Which means if we execute the wrong initiative, note I said initiative and not strategic initiative, it can seem like progress for the business. However, because it is not a strategic initiative, you run the risk of creating a larger rift between the business and its corporate strategy. When considering the operationalization of the Create strategic initiative, we recommend at minimum to consider the following transition insights and to incorporate these insights into your transition process. Insight 1. Update the business operating model. In its most simplistic form, the operating model is how the business executes the day-to-day operations of the business to deliver on its promised value to its customers, stakeholders, etc. Any transformational change to the business affects how the business will execute its day-to-day operations. Hence, it is highly recommended to assess the impact of the transformation on the business operating model and, at a minimum, to make any updates deemed necessary so the business can reap the benefit from this change. Insight 2. Update the leadership roles and responsibilities. This goes without saying. As the business expands, changes, similarly the leadership role and responsibilities will evolve to match the transformed business. We recommend that with every transformational change, the business ensures that it clarifies how the transformed business affects everyone, thus reducing confusion, gaps, lack of accountability, assumption, etc., all of which can erode the return on your investments of any transformational project. Insight 3. Update operating procedures and policies. Now, this is self-explanatory again. With all changes, the business standard operating procedures and policies must be updated to aid in training, transition, and to ensure quality in the daily execution of the business. Insight 4. Plan and execute all communication change management, both internally and externally. Transformational changes disrupts the workforce, which in turn disrupts customer service. It is highly recommended to be appropriately transparent to manage staff expectations and to manage customers' expectations so as to minimize key staff turnover and customer attrition. Insight 5. We highly and strongly recommend that you stick to the transition method specified or defined in part 4 of this mini series, which is how to transition the output from the SI project onto the operations of the business. Now, the two methods discussed are 1. To transition in a phased approach, or 2. To transition in a single cut over approach. The Fix or Repair Strategic Initiative. The Fix or Repair Strategic Initiative is a special project to repair something which, in its current state, is blocking or preventing the business from taking the necessary actions required to achieve one or more of its corporate goals. Effectively, a Fix or Repair Strategic Initiative do not create anything new for the business, but rather improves the state of something currently existing within the business. You can think of a fix or repair SI as a racing car having a flat tire during the race, regardless of what the driver does. And despite of the fact that the car can move, it cannot race unless the tire is first repaired. Similarly, in a business, there are aspects of the business which is operational. However, in its current state, it isn't operating at the level of efficiency, productivity, or quality required to allow the business to execute the necessary actions to grow the business. Some fix or repair SI can include 1. A strategic project to upgrade the production facility to optimize its production capacity. Now, this is only relevant if the facility has the potential to produce the quantity required. However, in its current state, it is not able to operate at its optimal capacity. 2. Another fixed or repair strategic initiative could be the strategic project to refresh the business M&A strategy. The business may have access to the investment funding to expand through acquisition into new markets, new products line, or to expand its production capacity. However, with its current lack of focus, no clarity on where to invest or what to invest in, no agreement on what the goals are, a lack of clarity on how to incorporate the acquired business into the current business, the business may not be gaining any synergistic value using the current M&A strategy. Now, before the business can benefit from executing the activities necessary to achieve its growth through acquisition, the business must first fix and repair its M&A strategy, including gaining clarity on the business corporate strategy. Other fixed or repaired strategic projects includes 1. Projects to upgrade the fleet of vehicles, which in its current state is affecting performance, operations, and customer satisfaction. Or a project to invest in culture and brand services to correct dysfunctional behaviors and ineffective management practices that is affecting the customers negatively, resulting in customers' attrition, a poor delivery of services, and or employee turnover. Or a project to upgrade the business office space, conference room, amenities, etc., in order to attract a higher caliber of clientele, which in its current state will not attract the customers you are interested in to grow the business. As we mentioned earlier, a fixed or repair SI will not create something new, but repair something which in its current state is blocking the business from growing, achieving its corporate goals. As such, the scope of change will include things such as change management, resource changes, procedural changes, equipment changes, etc. Now, when considering the operationalization of a fixed or repair SI, we recommend at minimum to consider the following transition insights and to incorporate the following into your transition process. Insight 1. Clarify roles and responsibilities. As the business changes through upgrades and improvements, including changes to the execution of the business operational activities, it is highly recommended to use this opportunity to streamline the functions and the leadership roles and responsibilities to maximize operating efficiency. Insight 2. upgrade operating procedures and policies. This is self explanatory. As with all changes, the business standard operating procedures and policies will change. As part of the transition process, upgrade the business procedures and policies and train or retrain all users to ensure adoption and quality in the daily execution of the business operations. Insight 3. Plan and execute all communication change management, both internally and externally. Transformational changes disrupts the workforce, which in turn disrupts customer service. It is highly recommended to be appropriately transparent to manage staff and customers' expectations so as to minimize staff turnover and customer attrition. Insight 4. The last insight we would like to highlight is we highly recommend that you stick to the transition method defined in part 4 of this series, the Discontinue Strategic Initiative. The final type of SI we will discuss is the Discontinue Strategic Initiative. A strategic initiative to discontinue an aspect of the business that is no longer serving the business, but instead is obstructing the business from pursuing its corporate goals. Now, depending on what the business is discontinuing, whether it's a business unit, a function, or a product line, the business will undergo changes to its operating model, as well as changes from the shrinkage of the business. Again, the business will make the strategic decision to execute its discontinued SI only if that unit, function, or product was preventing the business from achieving one or more of its corporate goals. It may be preventing the business in that it pulls the business further away from its corporate strategy by focusing the business resources in a way that conflicts with its corporate strategy, or it is affecting the business competitive advantage, or the unit, function, or product may no longer be profitable or strategic for the business. I must mention, in my experience, I have noticed two common triggers for a discontinued strategic initiative. The first common trigger is a refresh or change in the business corporate strategy. Now, this may be as a result of new leadership, strategic planning, performance review, etc., where the business leadership decides for whatever reason to refresh its or reset its corporate strategy. The second common trigger is current or forecasted market disruption or market changes. Some businesses may decide to proactively shed aspect of the business while it can at a profit in advance of the actual market being disrupted. While the opposite is also true for other businesses who reacts to the changes in the market by deciding to discontinue the non-strategic aspect of the business after disruption. The first strategy is more proactive, while the latter is more risk adverse, only acting after they are confident that the market is going to be disrupted or changed. The Discontinue SI transition insights we would like to highlight are: Insight 1. Update the business operating model. Similarly to the Create SI, the shrinkage of the business will affect how the business executes the day-to-day operations of the business. The Discontinue SI would leave operating gap or empty spaces in the business, as well as questions on how to execute certain scenarios which only exist as a result of the shrinkage. The business simply cannot assume that because the business shrunk that they can go on with less responsibilities. That assumption is incorrect and will affect the business negatively. Insight 2. Update roles and responsibilities. We hinted to this in Insight 1. Update the business operating model. After the discontinuation, the shrunk business will leave some resources without a job and others with a lot of white spaces on their calendars. It is highly recommended that the business revisit the organization chart and streamline the business resources to accommodate the operating demands of the reduced business. Insight 3. Update operating procedures and policies. Everything in a business is linked, interrelated, and connected in one form or another. Products influences sales and vice versa. Sales influences customer service, and customer service affects sales, products, etc. You can draw a line connecting almost every function in an organization with the other functions in the business, even supporting functions such as finance, IT, legal, etc. When a part of the business is stripped away, all the connecting procedures and policies are affected, must be updated, and users retrained. Insight 4. Retraining users so the business reduced staff can execute the operations of the transformed business. There is a likely possibility that the workforce is also reduced as a result of the discontinuation in the business, resulting in users taking on responsibilities of their previous peers. Functions may also be consolidated and better streamlined to support the new business. In this form of transformation, staff is often moved around, reassigned, and as a result, needs to be retrained. Insight 5. Plan and execute all change management communication both internally and externally. Similar to the change communication discussed above, it is highly recommended to be appropriately transparent to manage staff and customers' expectations so as to minimize key staff turnover and customer attrition. Insight 6. The last insight we would like to highlight is we highly recommend that you stick with the transition plan as discussed in the SI planning process discussed in part 4 of this series. So there you are, tips and insights on what to consider when transitioning an SI project from the SI team to the operations of the business. In the operationalization of an SI project, we transition accountability, ownership, and function from a test scenario to a live scenario where the business can now use the products of the transformation to achieve its corporate strategy. Now let's put the operationalization of an SI into perspective before we move on. All activities leading up to the operationalization of the SI project can be considered project design, planning, and project execution, project type activities, while the operationalization of the SI project is a gated activity transitioning from the project activities to the operational activities. This is just a rephrasing of everything discussed above, but it is worthwhile to emphasize that this is a gated activity, moving from a project base, which is one time contained within a controlled environment, to operations, which is just the opposite. The floodgates are open and everyone and everything is affected. The activities now becomes part of the live operations of the business, affecting staff, customers, suppliers, and all other stakeholders of the business, as well as refining the business profitability calculations. It is a critical shift which, if not managed properly, can result in the operators not adopting the changes. Now, we will discuss implementation misalignment in more detail in a future Insights Corner episode. Please note also that implementation misalignment was introduced in our very first introductory episode of this Insights Corner series. See the link provided on the screen somewhere. Insights into the execution of the strategic initiative process. Just to clarify, in this segment, we will share insights into what to consider when you execute the SI process as opposed to an SI project. So, process and not project. Now, the purpose of this execution of the strategic initiative process segment is to share some of the assumptions made in the development of this series, some assumptions we made on behalf of the businesses who will be executing the strategic initiative process, and to share insights that my experience has revealed will improve the chances that your strategic initiative will succeed. Assumptions made in the development of this strategic initiative series includes the businesses are interested in growth and transformation. The businesses are interested in strategic planning and the strategic planning exercise, meaning a proper strategic planning process. The businesses interested are organizations with a hierarchy of resources, meaning they have managers, employees, and leaders. The businesses interested are in operations, meaning profitable operations for several years. The businesses interested have a version of a corporate strategy that they can use as a starting point. The businesses interested are not experiencing industry disruption, as we did not cater for any market disruption or the industry disruption in this series. And finally, strategic planning and strategy execution is the next natural step for the business, whether that's founded in growth or transformation to grow the business. Assumptions we made on behalf of businesses executing an SI process. The business is in growth and or improvement mode. The business has the potential to get the investment funding required to fund any selected SI projects. The business has the executive support to see a project through, work through obstacles collaboratively, and do everything in their power to ensure that the project is a success. The business has the resources to undertake a strategic initiative process. And the business is clear about its corporate strategy and has executive buy in on the business strategic part. Insights to execute the strategic initiative process. Reduced management misconception or management faux pas. First, we will summarize some of the common misconception which affects the successful execution of the strategic initiative process, or list some common management misconception this strategic initiative process will address. Please note that we cannot define each of the concepts in this episode without losing focus. Also, some of these concepts were already discussed in many of our earlier Insights Corner episodes. So please do not hesitate to visit NMCS blog page on our website to find out more. Management misconceptions this strategic process will address or help with. 1. Strategic misalignment. By increasing the chances that the decision made or the project selected is aligned with the business corporate strategy, and it reduces interpretation errors. 2. Implementation misalignment. It reduces the probability that the business selects projects it is not equipped or able to implement successfully. It reduces the chances that the business will select projects the business does not have the capabilities to implement. And it reduces the chances that the business selects projects that do not have the full management buy in or the support required when things go awry. 3. Silo trap. It reduces the chances that the business will select projects that are best for one function but conflicts with other functions in the business. 4. Agendas and power struggle or the struggle for dominance. It reduces the chances of selecting project because it promotes one's status or sense of importance. Now, before we move on, I must share that the statement above are not judgment statements, but recognition of correctable management practices, which in my experience have been very damaging to businesses. The good news is that the strategies discussed in this strategic initiative process is a very easy, uncontentious process to influence the positive behaviors and practices you would like to see in your business. If I do say so, it does so in the most agreeable way possible in corporate management. Now, to end this segment, let's discuss 10 benefits of the SI process. We made a lot of understood assumptions throughout this series, simply because we attempt to provide insights without inflating an already complex and lengthy topic. This is just one of the consequences of creating a compact video with content on complex topics. The benefits of executing this SI process, as discussed throughout this series, includes 1. It provides an opportunity to clarify the business corporate strategy, ensuring that everyone is in agreement of what the business corporate strategy is. And believe me when I say this is a much bigger problem than most would like it to be. It would be preferred to assume that everyone knows what your vision is, similarly interprets your vision the way you interpret it, and is equally motivated to achieve it. However, sorry to burst your bubble, but that is not a reality in any business that I have been exposed to. 2. It develops the details required to eradicate communication and interpretation errors, where we assume that everyone else is thinking what we are thinking. 3. It develops the details required to improve decision alignment with the business corporate strategy, reducing confusion and obscurity. 4. It develops a strategy map with consensus on what the business is focusing on in the short and medium term. 5. It improves the project management function within the business. 6. It unveils the limitations and/or constraints within the business with consensus on what the business is willing and able to address. 7. It improves communication within the business, facilitating appropriate transparency and feedback. 8. It develops the information and discipline to better equip the business to collaboratively tackle challenges. 9. It improves culture and teamwork. 10. It improves the insights to execute change more effectively within the business. That's a wrap. That brings us to the end of this mini series. In this 6-part mini series, 1. We defined, positioned, and differentiated strategic initiative within the business. We shared NMCS strategic initiative process. We discussed each of the 7 steps in detail so you are able to follow our thinking, understand why the step is important, including its purpose, benefits, and insights into the execution of that step. And finally, ended with insights into the execution of the strategic initiative process itself. This has been a long and exciting 6 months with 6 information packed episodes on strategic initiatives. We would like to make things as easy as possible for our listeners. So, in our next Insights Corner episode, we will publish a special strategic initiative recap video for our time stumped users with links that will allow you to home in on the specific sections of each part you would like to dive into in more details. It is worth repeating and emphasizing. There is no reason anymore for any leader to not be intimate with all the details of the business corporate strategy. Having clarity on what you are working towards, having consensus on what you are working towards and why, having confidence in the assumptions, inclusions, exclusions, limitations, constraints, and goals of the business. These are valuable to the effective execution of the business corporate strategy, all of which you can glean effectively from this mini series. Now, before we end, first and most importantly, we highly recommend, if you do nothing else, get clarity on the business corporate strategy and clarify on the specifics of what you intend to achieve from the business corporate strategy. Why? Simply because it is one of the biggest and most contentious issues in business. When you have different people working towards different assumed goals, it costs you, it costs the business. If you need help unpacking or clarifying the business corporate strategy, check out part 2 of this mini series. The link is provided on the screen. Or contact us and we will help. After all, this is what we do best. I would leave you with this quote: half of the problem is not knowing, only half. The other half is execution. This series is designed to help unveil the not knowing of your corporate strategy, as well as we provided insights that helps with the execution of your corporate strategy. Our commitment to you, our customers, is to bring cost-effective solutions the business can act on to get to the root cause of your business' most dire problems. And this mini-series is just one of the ways we deliver on that commitment. You see, a poor strategic initiative process is one of business's most dire problems, in that you select projects that do not promote the achievement of your corporate strategy. Also, as part of our commitment to find creative ways to bring cost-effective solutions to the business, we recently published a management handbook of sorts, containing details on how to unpack the business corporate strategy to develop the valuable management details that would provide most of the benefits discussed above. For less than $10, you can get this solution. So pick up your copy of Bite-Sized Strategic Management Discussions: The Role of Processes in Leadership today on Amazon. The link is provided below. Thank you for your time, and I hope that you and the business benefits from this mini series. It has been my absolute pleasure to bring this special strategic initiative mini series to you. I am your host, Nalini Manik. Be strategic. Cheers.